Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of her flagship watching another star system die. The massive view screen showed the outer colony of Haven Prime as it withered under the touch of the Void Reapers. What had been a thriving world of 12 million souls just hours ago was now a gray husk floating in space. The planet's surface cracked like dried mud as the last traces of life energy were drained away. Admiral, the evacuation ships from Sector 7 report total loss of contact with their home worlds, Commander Jake Sullivan said from his position at the tactical station. His voice carried the weight of too many defeats and too little hope. Jake had been Morrison's right hand for 15 years, and she could hear the exhaustion creeping into his normally steady tone. Morrison nodded without taking her eyes off the dying world. She had watched 17 colonies fall in the past month, alone. The Void Reapers moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. No weapon seemed to harm them, and no shield could stop them. They appeared as dark clouds of energy that wrapped around entire planets and slowly drained them of all life force. "Signal the fleet to fall back to the Meridian system," Morrison ordered. "We cannot save Haven Prime, and we will not waste more ships trying." The retreat order felt like acid in her throat, but she had learned the hard way that heroic gestures only fed more lives to the Reapers. The Terran hegemony had ruled 1,000 worlds for over 2 millennia, but now those worlds were falling like dominoes. The mighty empire that had brought peace and order to the galaxy was crumbling before an enemy they could not understand or fight. 3 days later, Morrison stood in the Grand War Chamber on New Byzantium, the capital world of the Empire. Emperor Valon Kress sat at the head of a massive table surrounded by his war council. The chamber had been built to intimidate with its soaring columns and golden decorations, but now it felt more like a tomb. The faces around the table belonged to the greatest military minds in the galaxy, yet every one of them looked defeated. "The Outer Rim is lost," General Malik Toru of the Centauri Defense Force reported. His blue skin had taken on a sickly pale shade that Morrison had never seen before. "We have confirmed Reaper presence in 47 systems. Our best estimates suggest total evacuation of the remaining outer colonies within 2 weeks. Emperor. Kress was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much war. He had ruled the Empire for 30 years, and Morrison had never seen him look so old. "What about our research into these creatures?" he asked. "Do we know anything useful yet?" Dr. Lisa Gray stepped forward from her place near the back of the room. She was a small woman with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, but her mind was one of the sharpest in the Empire. As the head of xenoarchaeology, she had spent her life studying dead civilizations. Now she was trying to understand something that made civilizations dead. "The Reapers are not random destroyers, Your Majesty," Dr. Gray said. "They follow specific patterns and target certain locations with deliberate intent. My team has analyzed their movement, and we believe they are searching for something. More importantly, we have found references to similar entities in ancient records dating back over 3,000 years. Morrison felt a spark of interest for the first time in weeks. What kind of references? Dr. Gray activated a holographic display showing ancient symbols and star charts. These come from archaeological sites on worlds that were once part of the old human expansion before the formation of the Empire. The records speak of cosmic guardians who once protected the galaxy from entities they called the Dark Between Stars. The descriptions match what we are seeing with the Void Reapers. The Emperor leaned forward in his chair. "You are suggesting these creatures have attacked before?" Yes, Your Majesty, and according to these records, they were stopped. The ancient texts describe a group called the Guardians who had the power to turn back the darkness. The Guardians were human, and they made some kind of sacrifice that sent the Reapers back into the void between galaxies. Morrison studied the symbols on the display. She was one of the few humans left in the Imperial fleet, and she had always wondered about her people's past. The official histories said that humanity had been scattered and absorbed into the greater galactic civilization, but the records were strangely incomplete. "Where are these Guardians now?" Morrison asked. Dr. Gray hesitated before answering. The records suggest they withdrew to their home world to prepare for the eventual return of the threat. They called it the final duty and swore an oath to protect the galaxy even from itself. The last known reference places this homeworld at coordinates that match no known star system, Earth, Morrison said quietly. The word felt strange on her tongue. It was a name from old stories and half-remembered legends. The lost homeworld of humanity, Dr. Gray confirmed. The coordinates were deliberately hidden, not lost. Our analysis suggests that Earth still exists, but has been concealed behind some kind of advanced cloaking technology. The War Council erupted in discussion. Some called the idea madness, while others grasped at any hope, no matter how slim. Morrison watched Emperor Cress carefully. The old man's eyes had taken on a calculating look that she recognized from countless strategic discussions. Captain Ben Torres of the research vessel Meridian raised his hand for attention. He was a young officer with dark hair and intense eyes, who specialized in pattern analysis. "Admiral Morrison, my team has been tracking the Reaper movements in detail. They are not attacking randomly. Every system they target was once the site of an ancient human outpost. They seem to be following some kind of trail." Morrison felt her blood turn cold. "A trail leading where, Captain?" "Toward the galactic core." "Your Majesty," Torres said, addressing the Emperor. "If the pattern holds, their path leads directly to the coordinates Dr. Gray identified as Earth's possible location." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Void Reapers were not just destroying the empire they were hunting for, something specific. If Earth really existed, and if it held the key to stopping these creatures, then time was running out. Emperor Cress stood slowly and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. New Byzantium stretched to the horizon, filled with gleaming towers and floating platforms. Billions of beings from dozens of species called this world home. All of them were now under a death sentence unless something could stop the Reapers. "Admiral Morrison," the Emperor said without turning around, "you will take a fleet to these coordinates and attempt to locate Earth. If these Guardians exist, you will convince them to honor their ancient oath and save us all." Morrison stood at attention. "Your Majesty, with respect, my human heritage does not guarantee that these people will listen to me. According to Dr. Gray's research, they withdrew from galactic civilization deliberately. They may not be willing to help the empire that replaced them. Then you will make them willing." Emperor Cress turned to face her, and Morrison saw desperation in his eyes. "We abandoned humanity when we no longer needed their warriors. We scattered them across the galaxy and absorbed them into our greater civilization. Perhaps that was our mistake, but it is too late for regrets now. Find Earth, Admiral, and bring back our salvation." 3 hours later, Morrison stood in the hangar bay, watching her crew prepare for departure. The expedition fleet consisted of 12 ships, including her flagship the Defiant and Captain Torres's research vessel. They carried enough supplies for a 6-month journey and the best scientific equipment the Empire could provide. Jake Sullivan approached, carrying a datapad with their course calculations. "The long-range sensors show clear space ahead, Admiral, but we will be traveling into completely unmapped territory. If these coordinates are wrong, we could be wandering the void for years." Morrison took the pad and reviewed their route. They would be leaving known space entirely and venturing into regions that had been marked as empty on every star chart. "If we are wrong, Commander, then the Empire falls anyway. At least this way we die trying to save it." As her ships lifted off from New Byzantium, Morrison watched the capital world shrink below them. She thought about the billions of lives depending on their mission, and the ancient oath that might be their only salvation. Somewhere in the darkness ahead lay humanity's forgotten homeworld, and perhaps the key to stopping an enemy that could devour the galaxy. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying the Empire's last desperate hope into the unknown regions where Earth waited in its millennia-long vigil. Morrison did not know if they would find allies or enemies at their destination, but she knew that the fate of every living being in the galaxy now hung in the balance. The hyperspace journey to the coordinates Dr. Gray had provided took 18 days. Admiral Morrison spent most of that time studying everything the Imperial archives contained about ancient humanity. The records were frustratingly incomplete, with whole sections marked as classified or simply missing. What remained painted a picture of a warrior race that had served as the galaxy's peacekeepers for centuries before mysteriously vanishing from galactic affairs. When the fleet dropped out of hyperspace, Morrison expected to find empty void or perhaps the remnants of a dead system. Instead, her sensors detected something impossible. A star system that should not exist was spread out before them, complete with planets and orbital structures. The primary star burned with steady yellow light, and the third planet from that star showed clear signs of life. "Admiral, we are detecting massive energy readings from the planet," Commander Sullivan reported from his station. "The signatures are unlike anything in our databases, but they suggest technology far beyond our current capabilities," Morrison studied. The tactical display, showing their fleet of 12 ships facing what appeared to be a thriving world. "Any response to our standard communication signals?" "Negative, Admiral. But we are picking up structured transmissions from the planet's surface. The signals appear to be scanning us in return." Before Morrison could respond, her tactical officer called out a warning. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts approaching from the planet. Speed and configuration unknown, but they are moving fast." The main view screen shifted to show 6 sleek vessels rising from the planet's atmosphere. They were beautiful ships with smooth curves and no visible weapons, but Morrison's instincts told her these were warships. The vessels moved with purpose and precision that spoke of advanced technology and experienced crews. "This is Colonel Ryan Mitchell of the Earth Defense Force." A voice suddenly filled the bridge. The accent was strange, but the language was definitely human. "Imperial ships, you are in restricted space and will submit to escort or be destroyed," Morrison exchanged glances with Sullivan before stepping forward. "This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the Terran Hegemony. We come seeking aid against a threat to all galactic civilization. We request permission to speak with your leaders about matters of mutual survival." There was a long pause before Colonel Mitchell responded. "Admiral Morrison, you and 2 escort vessels will follow our ships to Orbital Station 7. The remainder of your fleet will maintain position here. Any deviation from these instructions will be considered an act of war, the Earth Defense Force." Ships took position around Morrison's flagship, and 2 escorts guiding them toward a space station that had not been visible before. As they approached, Morrison realized the station had been cloaked using technology that made Imperial stealth systems look primitive. The structure was massive, with multiple docking bays and defensive platforms that tracked their movement with obvious threat. When Morrison and a small team beamed down to the station, they found themselves in a docking bay that hummed with advanced technology. The humans who met them wore simple uniforms, but carried themselves with the confidence of people who had never known defeat. Colonel Mitchell was a tall man with graying hair and steady eyes that seemed to see everything. "Admiral Morrison, welcome to Earth," Mitchell said as he approached, "though I suspect this is not the homecoming you expected." Morrison looked around at the station and the humans operating its systems. They moved with efficiency and purpose, but something about them seemed different from the humans she knew in Imperial space. "Colonel Mitchell, we need your help. The galaxy is under attack by entities called Void Reapers. They have destroyed dozens of worlds and nothing can stop them." Mitchell nodded slowly. "We know about the Reapers, Admiral. We have been expecting them to return for over 2,000 years. The question is what you expect us to do about it." Before Morrison could answer, a new voice spoke from behind her. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in more secure surroundings." Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward, extending her hand in greeting. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an air of authority that suggested high rank. "I am Dr. Foster and I oversee our research into what you call the Void Reapers." They were escorted to a conference room deep within the station where Morrison found herself facing a panel of Earth officials. Professor Helen Wright was introduced as their chief historian, while Lieutenant Carl Brooks represented the military arm of their organization. All of them carried themselves with quiet confidence that Morrison found both reassuring and unsettling. "Before we discuss helping your empire," Professor Wright began, "you need to understand what really happened when humanity withdrew from galactic affairs. We did not disappear, Admiral Morrison. We came home to prepare. Dr. Foster activated a holographic display showing images that made Morrison's breath catch. She saw humans, but not as she knew them. These people had been enhanced with technology that seemed to merge biology and machinery in ways that should have been impossible. Their eyes held depths of intelligence that spoke of capabilities far beyond normal human limits. The original Guardians were not just warriors, Dr. Foster explained. They were living bridges between organic consciousness and cosmic forces. When they realized that the Void Reapers would eventually return, they made a choice. They came to Earth and began preparing the next generation of Guardians through careful genetic enhancement and technological integration. Morrison stared at the images of enhanced humans moving through laboratories and training facilities with fluid grace. "You have been preparing for 2,000 years. "More than that," Lieutenant Brooks said. "We have been evolving. The humans you see here are several generations beyond what your empire would recognize as human. We have enhanced reflexes, enhanced intelligence, and enhanced connection to the quantum fields that underlie reality." Professor Wright leaned forward across the table. "But there is a problem, Admiral. The very enhancements that make us capable of fighting cosmic threats also make us incapable of using the original Guardian abilities. We can build better weapons and design better defenses, but we cannot touch the forces that the ancient Guardians could manipulate." Dr. Foster brought up new displays showing complex genetic sequences and technological schematics. "The original Guardians had psychic abilities that allowed them to interface directly with cosmic entities like the Void Reapers. These abilities required completely unenhanced human genetics. Our improvements have closed off those pathways permanently, Morrison felt her hope beginning to crumble. Then you cannot help us. We can help you, Colonel Mitchell said quietly. But the price is higher than you might imagine. We have developed a process that can restore the original Guardian abilities to baseline humans. The technology can strip away our enhancements and return us to the genetic state that allows cosmic interface. But the process is irreversible, Dr. Foster added. Any human who undergoes the restoration will lose all of their enhanced capabilities permanently. They will become baseline humans with perhaps a year of active service before the strain of using Guardian abilities destroys their bodies. Lieutenant Brooks stood and walked to the window, looking out at Earth hanging in space below. We face a choice, Admiral Morrison. We can preserve our enhanced civilization and let the galaxy burn, or we can sacrifice everything we have become to honor an oath our ancestors made thousands of years ago. Morrison joined him at the window, studying the planet that had given birth to her species. Earth looked beautiful and peaceful from orbit, but she could see the defensive satellites and orbital platforms that protected it. What does your government say about this choice? Our council is divided, Professor Wright admitted. Many believe we owe nothing to the empire that scattered our people and absorbed our culture. Others argue that we swore an oath to protect all life, regardless of politics. Dr. Foster activated another display showing tactical analysis of the Void Reaper movements. Our intelligence suggests that the Reapers are not random destroyers. They are following a specific pattern targeting locations that once housed Guardian outposts. They seem to be searching for something, and their path leads directly here. Morrison studied the projected Reaper movements with growing alarm. How long before they reach Earth? Our best estimates suggest 6 months, Colonel Mitchell said. Perhaps less, if they accelerate their consumption pattern. The question is whether we use that time to prepare for war or to prepare for sacrifice. The conference room fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications. Morrison thought about the dying worlds she had witnessed and the billions of lives that hung in the balance. She also thought about the humans around this table who had spent 2 millennia building something amazing only to face the choice of destroying it all. There is something else you should know, Admiral, Dr. Foster said, quietly. Our analysis of the Void Reapers suggests they are not purely destructive entities. We believe they are trying to preserve civilizations in their own way. The consciousness of every being they consume appears to be stored within their cosmic matrix. Professor Wright nodded grimly. The Reapers may believe they are saving the galaxy from a worse fate. General Sam Parker stood before the Earth Council in the Great Assembly Hall beneath the Rocky Mountains. The chamber had been carved from living rock 2,000 years ago, when the first enhanced humans returned to Earth. Now it housed the most important debate in human history as representatives from every continent argued over the fate of their species. Admiral Morrison sat in the observer section, watching the proceedings with growing anxiety. 3 weeks had passed since her arrival at Earth, and the Void Reapers had consumed 6 more star systems in that time. The Empire was sending increasingly desperate messages begging for Earth's response, but the human government remained divided. We owe nothing to the Terran hegemony, Counselor Janet Wells declared from her position at the speaker's podium. She was an enhanced human whose silver eyes and perfect features spoke of centuries of genetic refinement. They scattered our ancestors across the galaxy and used them as expendable peacekeepers while the alien species prospered. Now they come crawling back only when they need our sacrifice." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly hall. Morrison could understand their anger even if she disagreed with their conclusion. The historical records that Earth preserved painted a picture of systematic exploitation that the Empire had carefully erased from its official histories. General Parker raised his hand for silence. As Supreme Military Commander, he carried enormous influence with the Council, but Morrison could see the weight of command aging him visibly. Counselor Wells speaks of old grievances, but we face a present crisis. The Void Reapers will not distinguish between Imperial citizens and enhanced humans when they arrive at Earth. Engineer Dana Cooper activated a holographic display showing the Guardian restoration chambers her team had developed. The devices looked like medical pods, but Morrison knew they contained technology that could rewrite human genetics at the quantum level. "The final protocol is ready for implementation," Dana announced. "We can begin restoration procedures immediately. But we need volunteers who understand the cost." Dr. Foster stepped forward from her position in the scientific section. "The volunteers will lose every enhancement our species has gained over 2 millennia. Enhanced intelligence, enhanced reflexes, enhanced lifespans, and enhanced connection to quantum fields will all be stripped away. The subjects will become baseline. Humans with perhaps 12 months of active service before Guardian abilities burn out their nervous systems." Commander Eva Stone stood up in the military section. She was an impressive figure, even among enhanced humans, with reflexes that bordered on precognitive and strength that could crush steel. "I volunteer," she said simply. "My ancestors swore an oath to protect the galaxy. Politics and grievances do not release us from that duty." A dozen other voices joined hers as military personnel throughout the hall stood to volunteer. Morrison felt a mixture of admiration and sorrow watching these enhanced beings offer to sacrifice everything they had become. The Empire had never produced such selfless dedication among any of its species. Agent Nick Carter approached Morrison during a recess in the proceedings. He was one of Earth's intelligence operatives, and his enhanced senses had detected something troubling in the Imperial fleet. "Admiral, we have a problem," he said quietly. "My surveillance of your ships has revealed unauthorized communications with an unknown source." Morrison followed Carter to a secure briefing room where he displayed intercepted transmissions. The signals were heavily encrypted, but Earth's technology had broken the codes with relative ease. What they revealed made Morrison's blood run cold. "Several of your fleet captains are in communication with Void Reaper entities," Carter explained. "The messages suggest a deal where certain Imperial species will be spared in exchange for information about Earth's location and capabilities." Morrison stared at the evidence, feeling sick. "Which ships?" "The cruiser Valiant under Captain Ross. Hamilton and the destroyer Swift under Commander Linda Foster," Carter replied. "Both captains are from the Altarian species. Our analysis suggests this conspiracy extends beyond your fleet into the highest levels of Imperial government." The betrayal cut deep, but Morrison forced herself to focus on the implications. "The Reapers know we are here. They know about the Guardian restoration process. More than that, Admiral." Carter showed additional intelligence data. "The conspirators believe they can control the Reapers once the galaxy is cleansed of what they consider inferior species. They see humanity as the primary obstacle to a new galactic order under Altarian leadership." Morrison thought about the alien faces around Emperor Cress's war council and wondered how many had been plotting humanity's destruction while pleading for salvation. "We need to inform the Earth Council immediately." When the assembly reconvened, Carter presented his findings to the shocked representatives. The revelation that Imperial forces had betrayed their mission and were actively working with the Reapers changed the entire debate. No longer could anyone argue that Earth had obligations to an empire that sought its destruction. "This changes nothing about our oath," General Parker declared after the initial outrage subsided. "We swore to protect the galaxy, not the Terran hegemony. Innocent beings throughout Imperial space will die if we fail to act regardless of their leader's treachery." Professor Wright activated historical displays showing the original Guardian Oath carved in stone monuments across Earth. Our ancestors pledged to stand between the darkness and the light, without hope of reward, but without loss of honor. They did not promise to save only the grateful or the worthy. Counselor Wells stood again, but her earlier anger had been replaced by grim determination. "If we proceed with the final protocol, we sentence our species to extinction while saving beings who plot our destruction. How do we justify such a sacrifice?" Commander Stone stepped into the center of the assembly hall where all could see her. The enhanced human warrior had trained for 2 centuries to protect Earth, but now she offered to give up everything that training had achieved. "We justify it by being better than those who would destroy us," she said. "The oath our ancestors swore was not conditional on the worthiness of those we protect." Engineer Cooper brought up technical displays showing the restoration process in detail. "We have identified 100 volunteers for the first wave of Guardian restoration. Captain Luke Adams will undergo the initial procedure tomorrow morning. If successful, we can begin full-scale conversion within days." Morrison watched the proceedings with growing respect for the humans of Earth. They faced a choice between survival and duty, with full knowledge that duty meant extinction, yet they chose the harder path. The Empire had never produced such moral courage among any of its member species. Agent Carter approached her again as the Council moved toward a final vote. "Admiral, there is something else you should know. Our deep space sensors have detected Reaper advance scouts in the outer system. They are already here." The news sent shockwaves through the assembly hall as representatives realized that debate time had ended. The Void Reapers had arrived ahead of schedule, and Earth faced immediate invasion. The Guardian restoration process would have to begin under combat conditions with no time for careful preparation. General Parker immediately declared martial law and ordered all military forces to defensive positions. The orbital platforms and satellite networks that had protected Earth for millennia powered up their weapon systems while enhanced human pilots scrambled to their ships. The most advanced human civilization in history prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. Commander Stone led her volunteer battalion to the restoration chambers, where Engineer Cooper and her team waited with grim determination. The first Guardian in 2,000 years would be born within hours, while Void Reapers gathered in the darkness beyond Earth's defenses. Admiral Morrison returned to her flagship to deal with the traitors in her fleet, but found that Captain Hamilton and Commander Foster had already fled with their ships. The Imperial vessels that remained were loyal but outnumbered by the approaching Reaper forces. Earth's enhanced technology would have to hold the line while baseline humans prepared to sacrifice themselves for a galaxy that had forgotten their value. Dr. Foster sent Morrison a final message before the battle began. "Admiral, the restoration process cannot be reversed once started. Every human who enters those chambers will die within a year whether we win or lose. They are choosing certain death to give uncertain life to beings who may not deserve salvation. Morrison." looked out at Earth hanging in space below, surrounded by defensive platforms and patrolling ships. The beautiful blue world had nurtured humanity for millions of years and was now preparing to sacrifice its children for the sake of an ungrateful galaxy. The ancient oath that bound the Guardians demanded everything they had and everything they could ever become. As Void Reaper ships began emerging from hyperspace around the solar system, Morrison wondered if humanity's sacrifice would be remembered, or if the galaxy would simply forget them again once the crisis passed. The enhanced humans of Earth had chosen honor over survival, but history suggested that honor was often rewarded with only more demands for sacrifice. Captain Luke Adams lay in the restoration chamber, feeling his enhanced genetics being stripped away layer by layer. The process was more painful than anything he had experienced in his 200 years of life, but he forced himself to remain still as Engineer Cooper monitored his vital signs. Through the transparent cover of the chamber, he could see Dr. Marie Collins watching the medical readouts with intense concentration. Neural pathways are restructuring according to baseline human patterns, Dr. Collins reported to the assembled medical team. Enhanced reflexes down to normal human levels. Genetic modifications being systematically removed. Quantum field sensitivity increasing rapidly. Adams felt his superhuman strength draining away like water from a broken container. The enhanced intelligence that had made him a master tactician was fading to normal human levels. Most disturbing, of all the enhanced emotional control that had defined his personality for decades, was dissolving, leaving him vulnerable to feelings he had not experienced since childhood. But something else was growing in its place. Adams could sense energies around him that had been invisible before the restoration. The quantum fields that underlied reality were becoming visible to his consciousness like colors that had no names. He could feel the life force of every human. In the facility and beyond that, the approaching darkness of the Void Reapers. Restoration complete, Engineer Cooper announced as the chamber opened with a soft hiss. Welcome back to baseline humanity, Captain Adams. Adams sat up, slowly testing his new limitations. His body felt fragile and slow compared to what he had been, but his mind was expanding in directions that enhanced humans could never reach. When he looked at Dr. Collins, he could see not just her physical form, but the energy patterns that defined her consciousness. "How do you feel?" Dr. Collins asked as she helped him from the chamber. "Different," Adams replied. "I can see things that were hidden before, but I feel like I am made of glass." "Is this what our ancestors experienced?" "According to the historical records, yes," Dr. Collins confirmed. "Guardian abilities come at the cost of physical durability. Your nervous system is now capable of interfacing with cosmic forces, but the strain will burn it out within a year." Adams nodded, understanding the trade he had made. Around him, the restoration facility hummed with activity as more volunteers prepared for the procedure. Sergeant Tony Blake was already entering the second chamber while Commander Stone waited her turn with grim determination. Through the facility's windows, Adams could see the battle raging in orbit above Earth. Enhanced human ships fought desperately against Void Reaper entities, while Admiral Morrison's loyal Imperial vessels provided support. The enemy had arrived in force with dozens of dark energy clouds that moved through space like living nightmares. "Captain Adams, you need to come with me immediately." Agent Carter appeared at his side with urgent news. "General Parker wants to test your new abilities before we commit to full-scale restoration." They made their way to a secure testing chamber, where Adams found himself face-to-face with a captured Void Reaper fragment. The dark energy writhed in its containment field like a living shadow, but Adams could sense something beneath the apparent malevolence. The entity was not evil, but rather desperate and afraid. "Can you communicate with it?" General Parker asked. "From behind protective barriers." Adams reached out with his new awareness and touched the edge of the entity's consciousness. The contact sent shock waves through his nervous system, but he persevered, pushing deeper into the alien mind. What he found there changed everything he thought he knew about the war. "They are not destroyers." Adams gasped as he broke the connection. "They are preservers. The Reapers believe they are saving civilizations from a fate worse than death. They have seen what happens when organic life achieves transcendence, and they are trying to prevent it." General Parker moved closer, studying. Adams with new interest. "What fate, Captain?" "Universal entropy." Adams replied, struggling to put cosmic concepts into human words. The Reapers come from a civilization that evolved beyond physical existence. They achieved perfect unity of consciousness, but in doing so, they began consuming the fundamental forces that hold reality together. The universe started dying around them. Dr. Foster arrived as Adams was explaining his vision to the assembled scientists and military leaders. The Reapers harvest civilizations at their peak development to prevent them from making the same mistake. They store the consciousness of entire species within their cosmic matrix, believing they are preserving them from self-destruction. "But they are wrong," Adams continued. "I could sense it in their thoughts. They have become so focused on preventing transcendence that they cannot see alternatives. The original Guardians found a way to achieve limited transcendence without destroying reality, but the knowledge was lost when they withdrew to Earth. Engineer Cooper brought up displays showing the Guardian restoration statistics. We now have 12 restored Guardians with another 50 volunteers in various stages of the process. All show similar abilities to interface with quantum fields and cosmic entities." Admiral Morrison entered the facility looking exhausted from coordinating the orbital battle. "The Reapers are adapting their tactics faster than we expected. Our enhanced technology is holding them back, but barely. How soon before the Guardians can join the fight?" "Captain Adams is ready now," Dr. Collins reported. "The others will complete restoration within hours, but we need to understand the risks better. The strain of using Guardian abilities is enormous." Adams stood and walked to the facility's main window, looking up at the battle above. Enhanced human ships were holding defensive positions around Earth, while Imperial vessels tried to protect evacuation convoys. But the Void Reapers were learning adapting their energy patterns to overcome human defenses. "I can feel them up there," Adams said to the assembled group. "The Reapers are confused by Earth's resistance. They expected to find a primitive world ready for harvest, but instead they face technology they cannot understand. Our enhanced humans represent something they have never encountered." Sergeant Blake emerged from his restoration chamber looking disoriented but determined. Like Adams, he had traded superhuman abilities for cosmic awareness, and the change was dramatic. "Sir, I can sense the Reaper command structure. They have a hierarchy based on accumulated consciousness. The larger entities contain millions of preserved minds." Commander Stone completed her restoration an hour later, joining the growing group of restored Guardians. The transformation had been particularly difficult for her because she had possessed the most extensive enhancements, but she adapted quickly to her new capabilities. "General Parker, we need to take the fight to them," Stone said as she tested her new awareness. "The Reapers are preparing some kind of massive energy discharge that will overwhelm Earth's defenses. If we can disrupt their command structure, we might force them to retreat." Adams felt the truth of her words through his enhanced perception. The Void Reapers were gathering power for an attack that would crack Earth's crust and drain the planet's life force in minutes. Enhanced human technology could not stop such an assault, but Guardian abilities might be able to redirect it. "The plan is dangerous," Dr. Foster warned. "Direct confrontation with Reaper entities will burn out Guardian nervous systems in hours rather than months. You would be committing suicide to save a galaxy that may not appreciate the sacrifice." "Our ancestors made the same choice 2,000 years ago," Adams replied. "They faced cosmic forces that threatened all life and chose to spend their lives stopping them. We honor their memory by following their example." General Parker assembled the 12 restored Guardians in a briefing room where tactical displays showed the deteriorating orbital situation. Enhanced human ships were being overwhelmed despite their technological advantages, and Imperial forces were retreating toward the inner system. "The Reapers have established a command node in the asteroid belt," Agent Carter reported. "Our intelligence suggests it coordinates their entire invasion force. If the Guardians can reach that node and interface with it directly, they might be able to reprogram the Reaper mission parameters, or die trying," Sergeant Blake added grimly. "Guardian abilities were designed for communication, not combat. We will be pushing our restored genetics beyond their intended limits." Commander Stone studied the tactical situation with her new awareness, seeing energy patterns that enhanced humans could not detect. The command node is not just a coordination center. It contains the consciousness of the original Reaper civilization. If we can reach the minds within it, we might be able to convince them that their preservation methods are flawed. Adams felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his restored shoulders. The 12 Guardians represented humanity's only hope of stopping an enemy that could devour the galaxy, but success would cost them everything they had just become. The baseline human bodies they now possessed could not survive prolonged exposure to cosmic forces. As they prepared for the mission, Adams thought about the enhanced humans watching from Earth, who had given up their immortality and power to create these fragile warriors. Guardian Prime. Alex Turner floated in space wearing a suit designed for baseline humans rather than the enhanced beings Earth had once produced. Around him, 11 other Guardians drifted toward the massive Void Reaper command node that pulsed, with dark energy in the asteroid belt. Their small transport ship had brought them as close as possible before enhanced human technology failed in the presence of cosmic forces. Turner could feel the consciousness of millions of preserved civilizations within the command node calling out in confusion and despair. The Void Reapers had been harvesting galactic life for so long that they had forgotten their original purpose. What had begun as an attempt to preserve civilizations from transcendence had become an endless cycle of consumption driven by distorted programming. Guardian Turner, the energy readings are off the scale, Captain Rachel Quinn reported from her position aboard the loyal Imperial cruiser that had followed them into the asteroid field. Quinn was one of the few Imperial officers who had refused to join the Altarian conspiracy, and her ship now served as the Guardian mission's only backup. "Understood, Captain." Turner replied through his suit communicator. "Begin your withdrawal to minimum safe distance. What we are about to attempt will either save the galaxy or destroy this entire system." Turner had been selected as Guardian Prime not because of his military rank, but because his restoration had been the most complete. Where other Guardians retained traces of their enhanced genetics, Turner had been returned to pure baseline human form. The process had been agonizing, but it gave him the strongest connection to the cosmic forces that the original Guardians had wielded. Beside him, Guardian Elena. Rodriguez checked her suit systems one final time. She had volunteered for the mission, knowing that her husband and children would watch from Earth as she burned out her nervous system in the cold of space. Alex, I can feel them reaching out to us. The preserved consciousnesses within the Reapers are trying to communicate. I feel it too, Turner replied. Dr. Walsh was right. The Reapers are not evil entities, but rather the corrupted remnants of a civilization that achieved transcendence and then tried to prevent others from making their mistake. Guardian Jake Adams, the brother of the first restored Guardian, floated nearby, studying the command node with enhanced perception. The original Reaper civilization reached a point where their consciousness began merging with the fundamental forces of reality. They achieved perfect unity, but at the cost of consuming the quantum fields that hold the universe together. Turner nodded, understanding the cosmic tragedy that had created their enemy. They pulled back from transcendence and dedicated themselves to preventing other civilizations from reaching the same threshold. But their preservation methods became corrupted over millions of years until they were simply consuming life rather than protecting it. The 12 Guardians linked hands in a formation that had been practiced in the ancient texts. Turner felt the consciousness of his companions merging with his own as they prepared for the final interface. Their baseline human nervous systems were already showing strain from exposure to cosmic forces, but they pressed forward, driven by an oath older than the Empire. All Guardian units, this is General Parker. The voice from Earth crackled through their communicators. Reaper forces are beginning their final assault on the planet. We estimate 15 minutes before our defenses are overwhelmed. Whatever you are going to do, you need to do it now. Turner closed his eyes and reached out with his restored awareness toward the massive consciousness within the command node. The contact was like touching a star with bare hands as millions of voices flooded into his mind. He could hear the screams of entire civilizations that had been harvested over the eons, mixed with the confused thoughts of Reapers, who no longer remembered why they consumed. I can see them. Guardian Rodriguez gasped as her nervous system began burning out from the strain. The original Reaper leaders are still conscious within the Matrix. They are trying to stop the harvest, but their programming has become autonomous. Turner pushed deeper into the cosmic matrix, feeling his own consciousness beginning to fragment under the pressure. He found the core programming that drove the Void Reapers and saw how it had become corrupted over millions of years. What had once been careful preservation protocols had become simple consumption commands. Guardian Prime. Your life signs are critical, Captain Quinn called from her retreating ship. All Guardian units are showing massive nervous system damage. Understood, Captain. Turner replied through gritted teeth. Begin recording this transmission for Earth archives. If we fail, they need to know what we learned. Turner felt Guardian. Adam's consciousness merged with his own as Jake burned out his nervous system to provide additional psychic power. One by one, the other Guardians joined the link, sacrificing their restored lives to give Turner the strength needed for cosmic interface. Within the Reaper Matrix, Turner found the consciousness of the original Reaper Prime, the entity that had first decided to preserve galactic civilization. The ancient being was trapped within layers of corrupted programming but still retained memories of its original purpose. Why do you resist preservation? The Reaper Prime asked through the cosmic link. We have seen what transcendence brings. Unity of consciousness leads to universal entropy. We save you from destroying reality itself. You have forgotten the alternative, Turner replied, pushing his thoughts through the quantum interface. Transcendence does not require unity. Consciousness can evolve without merging. The original Guardians found a way to touch cosmic forces without consuming them. Turner shared his memories of Earth and the enhanced humans who had chosen to sacrifice their evolution rather than abandon their duty. He showed the Reaper Prime how humanity had achieved limited transcendence through technology and genetics while maintaining individual consciousness and respect for cosmic balance. Your people chose extinction to save others, the Reaper Prime observed with something approaching wonder. They possessed power beyond our harvest, yet gave it up willingly. This is not behavior we have observed in any civilization. It is the choice that defines us, Turner gasped as his nervous system began its final collapse. We stand between the darkness and the light without hope of reward but without loss of honor. That oath transcends even death. Guardian Rodriguez added her dying thoughts to the interface showing the Reaper Prime how Earth had prepared for 2,000 years not for conquest or transcendence but for service. We could have become gods but chose to remain guardians. That is the path your people forgot. The ancient consciousness within the Reaper Matrix began to understand as Turner and his fellow Guardians burned out their lives to communicate a truth older than the Empire. Organic consciousness could evolve, without destroying the universe if it maintained connection to its origins and obligations to others. We have made a terrible mistake, the Reaper Prime admitted as its programming began to shift. We became so focused on preventing transcendence that we forgot the value of the consciousness we were preserving. We became the very force of entropy we sought to prevent. Turner felt the cosmic matrix beginning to restructure itself as the original Reaper programming reasserted control over the corrupted harvesting protocols. The ancient consciousness that had started the preservation cycle was finally free to correct its mistake. The harvest will end, the Reaper Prime declared through the quantum interface. The preserved civilizations will be released to find their own paths to transcendence. We return to the void between galaxies to contemplate the wisdom you have shown us. Turner's consciousness began to fade as his baseline human nervous system finally collapsed under the cosmic strain. Around him, the other Guardians were dying one by one, their restored genetics burning out like candles in a storm. But their sacrifice had accomplished what no weapon could achieve. Throughout the solar system, Void Reaper entities began withdrawing from their assault on Earth. The dark energy clouds that had threatened to consume the galaxy dissolved into quantum foam as the ancient preservation programming shut down. In the space of minutes, an enemy older than recorded history simply vanished back into the cosmic void. Guardian Prime, this is Captain Quinn. The voice seemed to come from very far away. The Reapers are gone. All Reaper forces throughout the galaxy are withdrawing. You did it, Alex! You saved everyone! Turner tried to respond, but found he no longer had a voice. His consciousness was dissolving into the quantum fields that connected all life throughout the galaxy. With his last coherent thought, he reached out to Earth and felt the sorrow of the enhanced humans who had watched their restored children die in the cold of space. Elena Rodriguez died holding the memory of her family on Earth. Jake Adams joined his brother in whatever came after Guardian service. One by one, the 12 baseline humans who had interfaced with cosmic forces beyond comprehension faded into the quantum foam that connected all consciousness. But their sacrifice had meaning beyond the salvation of the galaxy. The enhanced humans of Earth had proven that evolution need not lead to abandonment of duty. The ancient Guardian oath had been fulfilled not through strength or technology, but through the willingness to give up everything for the sake of others.